Karen stole a vet's combat boots. Her own son reported her to police. Have you ever wondered what drives someone to betray those who've sacrificed everything? The community center buzzed with warmth that chilly November evening. Volunteers sorted donations for veterans' blankets, clothes, and worn combat boots that carried stories of courage. Among them was Karen, a woman known for her sharp tongue and sharper sense of entitlement. She'd been a fixture at these events, always quick to claim credit for her selfless work. But tonight, her eyes gleamed with something darker than charity. Karen hovered near a box marked Veterans Fund, filled with items donated by a local Marine veteran, James Carter. James, a quiet man who'd served 2 tours in Afghanistan, had given his old combat boots, a tattered field jacket, and a few medals he couldn't bear to keep. Each item was meant for a charity auction to fund mental health services for vets. To James, those boots weren't just leather, they were memories of comrades lost, of nights spent under fire, of a life he'd barely pieced back together. Karen didn't see that. She saw dollar signs. These are collector's items, she muttered to herself, slipping the boots into her oversized tote bag when she thought no one was watching. She didn't stop there. The jacket, the medal, she grabbed them too, her movements quick and practiced. To her, these were trinkets to flip online for a quick buck, not symbols of sacrifice. She'd done this before, sneaking small items from donation bins, selling them on eBay, and pocketing the cash. No one had ever called her out. But someone was watching. Her son, Ethan. A lanky 17-year-old with a conscience as heavy as his mother's greed, stood frozen near the coat rack. He'd come to help with the event, dragged along by Karen's insistence that it'd look good for his college applications. Ethan knew his mother's habits, her late-night eBay listings, the way she'd justify her side hustles as just business. But this, stealing from veterans, it was a line he couldn't let her cross. "Mom, what are you doing?" Ethan's voice was low, trembling with disbelief. Karen spun around, her face a mask of indignation. "Mind your business, Ethan," she snapped, shoving the bag behind her. "These people don't need all this stuff. I'm just making sure it goes to someone who'll appreciate it." Her words dripped with self-righteousness, but Ethan saw through them. He'd heard her excuses too many times, how she deserved more, how the world owed her. The truth hit Ethan like a punch. His mother wasn't just taking things, she was robbing heroes. James Carter's face flashed in his mind. Ethan had met him earlier that evening, listened to the vet's quiet story about the boots, how they'd carried him through the worst days of his life. Ethan's own father had been a vet, killed in action when Ethan was 5. The thought of someone stealing his dad's memory made his stomach churn. Karen didn't notice her son's growing resolve. She kept rifling through the box, muttering about eBay bids and stupid sentimental junk. That's when Ethan's phone came out. His hands shook as he dialed 911, stepping outside to avoid her gaze. "My mom, she's stealing donations meant for veterans," he whispered to the dispatcher, his voice cracking. "She's got combat boots, metal stuff that belongs to a Marine. Please, you have to stop her." Inside, a new figure entered the scene, Maria, a volunteer coordinator and former Army medic. Maria had been watching Karen's odd behavior all night. She'd seen her linger too long near the donation bins, her hands moving too quickly. Maria wasn't one to jump to conclusions, but when she overheard Karen's flippant comments about the veterans' junk, her blood boiled. She'd lost her brother to PTSD after his 3rd deployment. These donations weren't just items, they were lifelines for people like him. Maria confronted Karen just as Ethan slipped back inside. "Karen, what's in your bag?" Maria's voice was calm but firm, her eyes locked on the bulging tote. Karen's face flushed red. "How dare you accuse me?" she shrieked, clutching the bag tighter. "I've been volunteering here for years. You think I'd steal?" Her voice rose, drawing the attention of other volunteers. The room grew quiet, the air thick with tension. Maria didn't back down. "Open the bag, Karen. Let's clear this up." Karen's eyes darted around, searching for an escape. She started to bolt for the door, but Maria stepped in her path, her military training kicking in. "You're not leaving with those," Maria said, her tone leaving no room for argument. Karen shoved her hard, sending Maria stumbling into a table. Gasps echoed through the room. The volunteers, mostly retirees and local moms, froze, unsure what to do. That's when Ethan stepped forward. "Mom, stop." His voice was louder now, raw with emotion. "You're stealing from people who gave everything. How could you?" Karen's face twisted with rage. "You ungrateful brat," she spat. "You think you're better than me? You'd be nothing without me." But Ethan stood his ground, tears in his eyes. "Dad would be ashamed of you," he said quietly. The words hit Karen like a slap, but she didn't have time to respond. Sirens wailed outside. 2 police officers entered, their radios crackling. Ethan's call had brought them fast. Maria, now back on her feet, pointed to Karen's bag. "She's got stolen donations in there," she said, her voice steady despite the bruise forming on her arm. The officers approached Karen, who was now screaming about her rights and how she was being framed. One officer calmly asked to see the bag. When Karen refused, they took it from her, revealing the boots, jacket, and medals nestled among her personal items. The room erupted in murmurs. James Carter, who'd arrived to drop off more donations, stood in the doorway, his face pale. He recognized his boots immediately, the scuff marks from a roadside bomb, the worn laces he'd tied 1,000 times. "Those are mine," he said softly, his voice heavy with betrayal. The officers cuffed Karen as she continued to yell, her words incoherent now, a mix of excuses and accusations. Ethan stood frozen, watching his mother being led away. Maria placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did the right thing," she said, her voice soft but firm. Ethan nodded, but the weight of his choice pressed down on him. He turned in his own mother, the one person who'd raised him, flawed as she was. But he couldn't let her destroy what little honor was left in those boots. Karen's downfall was swift. The local news picked up the story, branding her the veteran thief. Her eBay account, under scrutiny, revealed a history of selling stolen goods, everything from church bake sale proceeds to thrift store jewelry. The community she'd once charmed turned on her. At her hearing, she tried to play the victim, claiming she'd only borrowed the items to clean them. The judge wasn't swayed. Karen faced charges of theft and assault for shoving Maria, with a potential sentence of up to 2 years. James Carter, though heartbroken, found some solace. The auction went ahead, raising enough to fund therapy for 12 vets. Ethan, now grappling with his mother's betrayal, started volunteering regularly at the center, determined to honor his father's memory. Maria became his mentor, teaching him about resilience and the cost of doing what's right. In the end, Karen's greed cost her everything: her reputation, her freedom, and her son's respect. But from her fall, something stronger emerged. Ethan's courage sparked a movement in the town. Donations poured in, and the Veterans Fund grew larger than ever. James, once a quiet figure, became a local advocate, sharing his story to inspire others. What would you do if you saw someone betray a cause you believed in? Would you stay silent? Or would you speak up, even if it meant turning against someone you loved? Share your thoughts. Where do you draw the line between loyalty and justice?